like to introduce you to Gail Davidson. Now, those of you who were at the AGM about 5 years ago might remember that we farewelled Gail. And I remember listening to her farewell, her parting speech, which was marvellous, which was about what are the imperatives of education, let's not forget them. And I thought, well, I hope she's not going to be lost to education. And of course she wasn't, because what she did is she returned to America, and for the past 5 years she's been principal of Lynbrook High School in Silicon Valley in California. So she was principal of 2 schools in Victoria, Northcote High School, you might remember, and before that, the multi-campus Pembroke Secondary College. And she's back home, and, you know, the call of the grandchildren, you might hear that a couple of times today. But she's coming to talk to us today, and we're thrilled to have her with us. And so could you please welcome Gail Mitchell. Thank you. Gail Davidson. What am I saying?
Hello, hello. Typical. There we go. All right. Welcome. And I'm just, it's just such a honor and joy to be here today. But I have to start with really the respect. Because first and foremost, I want to express my respect for the work that you do. Believe me, I know what you do each and every day. One word, simple, principle. But we know what a job, what a joy, what a challenge, what a responsibility, what a calling. In my principal's office, I always had a picture, and it had a child there, and it had the quote. It said, "Children are always the only future the human race has. Teach them well." And I guess that says it all. Because we know, as principals, our charge is to always remain focused on student learning, teaching excellence, and finding a way to make the most supportive environment for those to occur. It's interesting, we just heard, we all bring our experiences and our perspectives to this charge. We certainly heard it on the panel. For me, yeah, it started back in the 70s. See that nice gray hair? That was in 22 years of being principal. But it started back in the 70s, where I was in one of the airlifts that came here in the Victorian Teacher Selection Program, where it was a 747 filled with teachers from California, or from America and from Canada. And I started as a first-year maths teacher at what was a country school, Pakenham High School. Now, while I returned to California 3.5 years later as a teacher, and eventually I was principal of Delaware High School, district director, and even interim superintendent, I always made many trips back to Oz, always returning to the U.S. with suitcases filled with great curriculum ideas and curriculum materials that were happening in Australia. I think it was global learning long before the internet. I never would have thought that I would retire having been principal of 4 high schools. Yep, 2 in Australia and 2 in California. 4 schools that have so much in common, but are also so very different, not so much by country, but by school culture and community. And I think we heard that. You know that. You know your school, and you know how different it is to the one across town or across the globe. The researchers know it. They study the differences between schools and classrooms and teachers. So many differences, and yet so much in common and so interconnected. In 2007, as principal of Northcote High School, I was honored to represent all of us in the town of Melbourne in delivering the Toast to the Gown at the Melbourne Uni Town and Gown Dinner. I spoke then about change and challenge, complexity, context, and certainly the courage that Melbourne Uni was taking in showing leadership to move to the 21st century. Here we are now in 2015, and what are we talking about? Big changes again in government, no doubt about that. Curriculum, economies, climate, technology. Challenges that remain for you to reflect and respond to, as well as prepare the students for those changes. Complexity and context, that's what we were hearing. The complexity of each one of your schools and the context that you're in your community. And so needing for each and every one of you to find that energy and courage to lead, and needing to find a clarity of thought to articulate a positive direction forward. Now, Mark Considine, he was the Dean of Arts, he still is, at Melbourne Uni, and he shared at the time the university's discussion about the T model for 21st century learning. And to me, it captured that kind of clarity of thought. He described the need for students to learn deeply, whether it be mathematics or if their love is history or science or dance, any study, but that they know what it's like to engage in rigorous deep learning. And then that they have the opportunity to apply it across disciplines. That was a clarity of thought. And in 2010, representing Lynbrook High School, I was invited by the U.S. Embassy to speak at the Women in Science Conference in India. There was much talk about supporting girls and women and science, but it seemed to me all framed around a clear understanding that girls need a sense of purpose. People need a sense of purpose. And so it was to seek deep learning, applied across discipline with a sense of purpose, which is part of my Silicon Valley story. For when I returned to California in 2009 to be principal of Lynbrook High School. Now, Lynbrook High School, okay. Lynbrook, like all schools, has those beautiful teenage kids, nervous parents, dedicated teachers, hardworking support staff, and each and every one of you knows, goodness, schools have so much humanity in one place. It is a coeducational, comprehensive public school, that's a government school, with over 1,800 students. That was the smallest in our district of 5, in the heart of Silicon Valley. So we were within a mile or so of the corporate offices for Apple, Adobe, Cisco, eBay, near Google, Facebook, Symantec, Oracle. It's not a specialist school, not a select entry school, but a neighborhood school in California. And California has had years of depressed educational funding. In fact, our per student funding rank dropped down to 43rd or 49th out of 50, depending upon the way you calculate it. But working with the Lynbrook community, and people talk about vision, working with the Lynbrook community, we articulated, and I brought back what I'd learned in Australia. We articulated a vision to reflect the global thoughts about 21st century learning. That it would be a dynamic environment of respect and achievement where all can learn deeply, can apply their knowledge, and contribute in a purposeful and meaningful way. Now, Lynbrook has been, much like Baldwin or whatever, a high-achieving school on standardized tests and academic performance indicators, always ranks in the top 10 in California. And remember, California is the most populous state. It has 38 million people in it. It's like a country itself. And in the top 100 plus across the United States. But the test scores and rankings don't really capture what I want to talk about today when I talk about the 21st century learning. Don't get me wrong, students take 1,500 advanced placement tests. Those are college, university level courses. And they score at 3, which is 94% of them score 3, and 57% of them score 5, which is the highest possible. And there's 11 different programs that have certainly received high national recognition, whether it be journalism or computer science, creative writing, robotics, Model UN. But it's also a place that I want to talk about where STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, is exciting, important, and celebrated. Of course, it is Silicon Valley. In one of Obama's State of the Union addresses, he stated that he hoped that one day we would celebrate the winner of the science fair in the same way that we celebrate the winner of a football game. At Lynbrook, we did just that. That picture down there. A picture captures it. It was a rally that when Intel announced their 2 finalists at Lynbrook for the Intel Science Talent Search, which is sometimes referred to as like the Nobel Prize for students, high school students in science. That year we had 6 semifinalists, and it was the first time in California history that that had occurred. It was unheard of, and it freaked out the private schools. This rally was during lunchtime. I had to talk the staff into releasing the kids 3 minutes early from class. And it's an open campus. They could have left at lunch. That too was unheard of. The following year, Lynbrook was named the National Intel School of Distinction for high school science. The 3 finalists that we went against, we had Brooklyn Tech, 5,000 kids, the Magnet Specialist Math Science School in New York, California Academy of Math and Science, which was the Magnet Specialist School for Los Angeles, and Lynbrook High School, which was the 1,800 kids that lived in the neighborhood right around the school, right around Rainbow Park. But I have to say, when we did that process, and we did it through an application, the application was not about just the science program. They really wanted to look at the whole program. It required us to describe things such as the professional development that we had and the way teachers teamed and the fact that we gave them time, that we had a late start every Wednesday, 90 minutes. Late start, though, in the U.S. means we started at 9:15 because it usually starts at 7:30. But we had the late start where teachers are teaming on that. We talked about instructional strategies on inquiry and research, school-wide strategies that we did to support our special ed students and our English learners, facilities and organizational support, and learning technologies that truly did permeate the entire community, or the entire learning environment, I should say. Now, as part of the team that traveled to Washington, D.C. to accept the award, I was struck by how exceptional this learning environment was. And I know some of you are thinking, oh yeah, well, isn't that nice? That's because, or. How does that relate to my school? All I can say is that in Washington, D.C. at that time, deep in my principal bones, you know what principal bones are, deep in my principal bones, I knew I needed and wanted to share some of my experiences, not to suggest in any way that you would do the same things or try to replicate Lynbrook, but that in sharing it, it might stimulate some thinking or some creativity or a new way to approach one of the problems you're experiencing in your schools. Because I think Silicon Valley nurtures what the philosopher Schopenhauer says. I love this one. It says, thus the task is not so much to see what no one yet has seen, but to think what no one yet has thought about that which everybody sees. It's looking at the thing and thinking about it in a new way. Now, at the gala dinner, when one of our students took second place in the Science Talent Search, the keynote speaker was the New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman. And he actually wrote an article about it in the New York Times. And he asked Amanda Alonso, who's our science coordinator and our science teacher and research coordinator, what were the secrets to success? And she said it was resources provided by the school, which included time to team, supportive parents, and a grant from Intel that allowed her to spend some of her day inspiring and preparing students to do real research. School support, parent support, partnership support. BBC Radio National followed up with a feature on Lynbrook. They came and he was surprised. It was about the energy and enthusiasm for learning, the teaching involvement, and the amazing parent support. And then Harvard professor Tony Wagner followed by it when he wrote his book called Creating Innovators. And he interviewed Amanda and other teachers across the United States at that point and was saying, you know, what is it that you do to create or support creative innovation? And Amanda, one of her pieces, and it's a video clip in there, was to understand that failure is a part of learning. And so when we talk about the student learning that's occurring inside the classroom, the Lynbrook science classes, it's not cookbook labs. They're actually hands-on learning ones that sometimes fail. They're scaffolded in scientific and research methods. The social studies and English classes are also scaffolding the research process and the writing process. In fact, one of our main whole school goals was to improve oral and written communication. And yes, we have more students that speak Chinese at home than we do that spoke English at home. And from lots of different countries. But what we needed to do was increase academic language production where kids were actually speaking at a higher level in the class. Teachers observed each other and gave feedback. The English teachers focused on close reading of nonfiction and textual analysis. Socratic seminars were done across the disciplines, peer tutors, and teacher-staffed homework centers. But also, it was very interesting having been a principal in California, been a principal of the multi-campus Northgate, and then to go back and be a principal in California again. It was really the experiences and the learning that happened outside of the classroom. There's a full student leadership structure with over 75 clubs, 14 of them in the STEM area. But the others range from things that kids are passionate about, whether it be Amnesty International or future business leaders, in design, fashion, or thespians. There's community service clubs and interest-based clubs, science bowls, school-wide learning activities, business internships, and the students were actually in the university doing real research, finding the answers to the problems that captured their imagination and lit their fire. Now, you guys have been sitting a while, so watch what happens here. Because this is an example of one club, the Robotics Club. Lindbergh Robotics is just one of the 75 groups. It's a club, it's a team, it all happens outside the regular day. Students learn and support by adult mentors, volunteer, and some minimally paid. Students design hardware and software, they do marketing, they do fundraising, they do community outreach to the poor areas in low socioeconomic areas in San Jose, problem solving, and they have lots of fun. And it's not just a club for brainiacs, and it's not about having a robotics career per se, but it's about working on collaborative creative teams and working under real world restrictions with limited resources and limited time. When I first met them, they were actually working out of one of the parents' garages, and we somehow or another scrounged together and we got them an old portable. And it became a hub at lunchtime and after school and in the holidays. Because if you don't know about FIRST Robotics, which has started to come to Australia, and I know it's a couple of schools in Victoria and it runs out of Macquarie, that's what the FIRST Robotics is. And what I'd like to do is just show you a very short video. It's a student-created video of one of the competitions, because this is not Lego robotics. Let's see if I do it right. Here we go. Turn it up. The competition is to try to get the frisbees in the hole. You don't have a school by name, it's by number, because you form an alliance with two other schools.
So we can move a little faster. I'll make it real. I'm not a glorious disaster. While Papa living says you gotta die, I plan on burning to another 9 lives. One more for measure, that's 10 for the soul. They never sleep, so are you ready to go? Push up against the clear blue sky. Tick-tock, I think the weather's running dry. I can't lie. I need a shot again. Sweet adrenaline. Dead shit doesn't feel us in the head. Bang, bang, cause the needle's in the red. I can't lie. I need a shot again. That sweet adrenaline. My sweet adrenaline. I just can't lie. It's the speed and the sound that I'm dying to try. I just can't lie. It's the love of the chase that created the ride.
Now, you don't think that inspires a teenager? It inspires us. I mean, I love to go to the robotics competition. What you have there is it's just amazing. Kids are applying it. And, you know, it's not all just the engineers. There were also the people doing marketing and producing the journal book. I have a copy of the journal book. I always think how great it would be if our Victorian Science Innovation Centers or the new tech centers were open after school and in the evening, so students from all schools could actually come together and team together and be involved in real live applied learning projects like FIRST Robotics. It's my challenge to you. I know that in Silicon Valley, certainly it's about working together to create that power of the possible. It was interesting. Maxine made me aware that Linda Darling-Hammond, she's a Stanford professor, was going to speak at Melbourne Uni, and I know you'll talk about it a little bit. But certainly when I went to listen to her, she said teaching is a team sport. And that was another moment of clarity. At Lynbrook, teacher teams analyze student data and create lesson plans, assessment, and rubrics together. They counsel students, and they use student peer tutors. But also the students are teaming together. In fact, Time Magazine did a special on an MIT, that's Massachusetts Institute of Technology study, where they looked and they identified the 5 powerhouse schools in mathematics. This time they did remove the select entry and they removed the private schools. And Lynbrook was one of 5 schools where girls were particularly excelling. And what they found was that the difference in the powerhouse schools to other schools with similar resources were how they created communities around learning. The math teams and the clubs gave the students the opportunity that were especially important for the girls. So at Lynbrook, we have adult mentors and corporate sponsors. We did a Stanford research to help us identify the influences of culture on learning. The website is absolutely a daily used, powerful conduit, filled with usable information that is a go-to place for students and parents. That's in addition to the other portals that I know you have. We had School Loop and Infinite Campus and Naviance, and the guidance department actually had a Facebook page. There's parent groups and booster groups, and we had a bilingual parent group where they actually buddied up a parent with a language specific so that they could help connect the parents to the information and also to the high school experience. The district foundation that was raised, it allowed us to do an independent studies science research class for year 9 students, and journalism software so the kids could publish online as well as on the web, in print. And I was proud that we were able to form a nonprofit organization called Lynbrook Excellence that provided the conduit for parents to be able to donate money that has brought in $580,000 in 3 years, and now is in the structure there to bring in $200,000 a year. There's a philosophy, and if you want to talk about business partnerships, where the businesses and the corporations all do matching funds. So if the parent donates $20, the corporation donates $20. And if they donate $2,000, the corporation donates $2,000. And that kind of involvement in certainly makes a difference as far as resources go. Now I could go on and on. Today is not about Lynbrook, and it's not about Silicon Valley. It's about you, your school, and our Victorian education system. So I want to close. I've been back in Melbourne a little over a year and done a lot of reflecting. You know, I'm a complex lady, right? Because I've been in California, I've had fantastic learning experiences in Australia and back in California. And so I want to reflect. And I want to share some recommendations from the old lady up here. Human factors, system factors, and school factors. And I know I'll be there. The human factors. I have to say, when I was first early on as a principal, I heard Margaret Wheatley. She was speaking at a worldwide leadership conference, being simultaneously telecast around the world. And she said succinctly, all progress is based on relationships. And I know that I can say, as being principal of 4 high schools, all progress is based on relationships. Relationships always come first. And the other one that strikes me from a human factor is the quote that says, the antidote to exhaustion is not necessarily rest. It is wholeheartedness. Whether gathering your own energy or working with your staff and students, we want to tap their hearts and minds. We want to help find the fire within them that adds new energy. From a system perspective, I just got to say, I wish we could move beyond scarcity mentality and get to an abundance mentality. Move beyond the zero-sum game of government funding. Yes, we need more government funding. But we also need to be proactive in finding new ways to bring additional resources beyond government funding in schools. I believe, sorry, some of these things, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I guess as an old lady, I get to say these things, and it's my last hurrah here. But I say, we got to redesign the leave policy, the teacher leave policy, the way they piecemeal all over the place, and it disrupts the learning like crazy. Why isn't it all one term? I just think we've lost fact that I was amazed how the teacher-student class time was honored and protected at Lynbrook. Student learning must come first. And I say open the school day with more flexible options for teacher work hours, especially in the innovation centers, so that teachers in our facilities can support new ways to engage kids in real learning. Flexibility supports innovation. And I'm sorry, I'm just tired of hearing the words literacy and numeracy. We know it's important, but we need to lift our language. Because it's more than literacy and numeracy. We need to lift the priority of math and science. The ability to do real science and engineering and technology requires high-level mathematics and academic language production. And these are kids. We had kids that just arrived on the boat virtually or whatever. They came, they didn't speak it, but they need to more than speak it. They need to be able to speak at high levels, speak, write, discuss, debate, analyze, so that they can truly communicate in whatever discipline they're in. And then, I guess I believe in all our schools, and I hope in your school, that it's possible to find new time. I know, you're miracle workers anyway, right? You have to find new time for teachers to team. Designate larger blocks of time for course-alike teachers teaching the same course, ideally in the morning. Drastically reduce the number of general staff meetings. We used to have a staff meeting once a month, and we didn't have the other meetings. The rest of the time was teacher time, meeting together, where they were planning, reflecting, redesigning their teaching and learning activities. And in each one of you, I know it's happening out there, but we even need to do more, is reduce the number of preps. That is the actual number of courses they teach. Because it's hard to team if you're in 10 teams. It's hard to be focused. When it comes to partnerships with the parents, use the school website. I go to the website all the time. That's being retired, And all I can say is that the websites can be a portal to inform and engage the parents and the kids, just like you do. You use it for whatever you're, surfing through. You gather the information. Your parents want to, and then they get engaged and excited. Businesses and organizations, invite them in. Each one of your communities is different. You got a different kind of business or organization. Have them be a part of the learning process. And I don't know the rules, but I've been working with Kate at Northcote and whatnot, the foundations and nonprofits. By the way, some of you are taking notes, and I know Marion's going to put it on the web. I have a written version on it. And then applied learning. All I can say is set up structures so students can take the lead. If you need something done, there are untapped resources. Let a student do it. Solve it, create it, do it, and you'd be surprised at what they come up with. We need more than student voice. Students need to be able to take the lead and be open to the rich learning that happens outside the classroom. We know our kids are learning 24/7. How is the learning that they're having outside the school also coming inside the school to what's happening in their classroom? So I close by again reinforcing the utmost respect that I have for what you do. I hope you continue to find your own wholeheartedness so that you can lead courageously. It can feel lonely at the top sometimes. We all know it. Anybody that's been a principal knows it. You need to team too, to reach out to others. I know VASSP is there for you, and I want you to know I am too. I'm happy to be a volunteer mentor, critical friend or colleague to any one of you. I got an email address. I'll be back in the U.S. in April, but I can email there, and I'm certainly available. That's one of those things about being retired, or what I like to say is untired. But I'm happy to anytime, anywhere, I'm only an email away. I'm probably not your best person to contact if you want the latest department budget structure or curriculum initiative. VASSP was my lifesaver in those areas. But if you want to discuss building relationships, creating teams, creative partnerships, student leaderships, or even robotics, drop me a line, give me a call. Children are always the only future the world has. Teach them well. Thanks, VASSP, and thanks to all of you.
Yes, that's the Gail I remember. She's definitely back, and you'd be mad not to take up her offer to be some sort of support or advocate for you.